My name's Alastair Tallon. I'm Head of Learning and Participation at the Royal Albert Hall. I've been there since 2006, and my remit is to develop the education provision that the Hall has to offer to schools and voluntary organisations across the country. Actually, it was a member of my team that had worked with wide touring before, and she told me about what you did, and it meshed so nicely with what we were trying to achieve at the Hall, because part of our remit, as well as the arts, is science. And so finding wide touring and finding out about what you did became a very obvious fit for us. I think the arena debate was a huge step forward for the Hall in terms of its outreach in terms of science. It was a project that, because of the tour that wide touring were doing anyway, was going all over the country, and it meant that every school that had the tour was able to take part in that project. And for us, it also meant that we were able to bring a number of schools that had never been to the Albert Hall before down to take part in the debate. And I think to turn the Hall into an arena, into a debating arena, was an exciting new development for us. And I think the other bit for us, which was really good, is that we had people that came from Scotland and Northern Ireland. And we'd never before worked with schools in those areas. So it really did deliver something very important to us in terms of our own development. And I think it was an interesting way of approaching the topics. The other area which I think was really important is that it put the scientists directly in front of the young people and encouraged that discussion, that debate between them. The third element, which I think was very important, was by asking the young people to create the films around the topic of stem cell research, meant that they had to think very deeply about the topic and the subject, but they had to combine it with a media approach. And so for the schools, it made a more interesting project, I think, for them, because they were able to bring in two different disciplines and actually get two different departments working together, which in schools is quite an important part of what they're doing as well. So I think all those things made it a very special project for us. Well, I think it's that you do pick out the topics which are of interest to young people. They are always topical issues as well. They are in the public arena, and people are talking about them. And so I think what wide touring are doing is giving that opportunity for young people to engage in that debate, and they don't get that opportunity otherwise. And I think it's important that at the end of the day, they are the people that are going to be most affected by the issues that you're talking about, because they are things that are going to be developed in the future, but we are now discussing them now because we need to consider the moral and ethical issues of them. So it's not so much me and my generation that are going to be affected by it, it's them. I think it is the debate. I keep coming back to that debate issue, because what the play does is it stimulates the thinking of the audience. It gets them to consider issues which perhaps it's been marginal to them. And certainly in terms of delivering something into school, which is a special way of educating people. And that's the first part of it. And I think the theatre of debate bit then allows them to articulate their own thoughts and feelings about it, and to have that discussion with the actors in character. And I think the research and the amount of information that those actors have had to take in, it's not just about learning a script, standing up and performing it and then walking off. They need to understand the issues, and they are very good communicators. And I think what they do is they make that link between what the children have seen in the performance and the actual debates. And I just think it helps bring everything together in a very coherent way. I thought it was an interesting topic, clinical trials. It wasn't something that had crossed my mind as something that schools would have a particular interest in. And I think what was demonstrated, particularly by the residency at the Hall, from my perspective, is that schools really wanted to come and see it. And I think it was an interesting issue. And when I came in to watch one of the performances, stimulated an emotional response. In fact, all the plays have always stimulated an emotional response. And at the end of the day, again, that's what the young people are going to particularly respond to. So I think the topic of clinical trials in itself was an interesting one because people hadn't really considered that as an issue which maybe they wanted to examine. But actually, when we got the audiences in, I think the debates that followed were really quite interesting.